A single sentence from Princess Anne has sent shockwaves through the palace corridors and beyond. What began as a quiet afternoon at Balmoral has erupted into a royal firestorm, with Zara Tindall, once seen as the vibrant heartbeat of the modern monarchy, now at the centre of a devastating royal fallout. What did Princess Anne say? Why now? And who gains from Zara's loss? Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. It started with a tremble in Anne's voice so subtle most wouldn't have noticed, but for those who know her, it was deafening. Anne, the unflinching pillar of discipline, never falters. But in this moment, her statement landed like a strike of lightning across the monarchy's already cracked foundations. Zara will no longer hold a representative role in the Crown's future initiatives, she declared, eyes cast down, breath held. For a royal used to restraint, it was an emotional earthquake, and the implications were instant. Reporters were caught off guard, scrambling to decipher the layers behind the words. What looked like a simple withdrawal of involvement was, in truth, a politically charged maneuver disguised as a formal adjustment. Within minutes, whispers began spreading through the corridors of the palace. This wasn't just a personal decision, it was strategic. The announcement had been discussed, postponed, and even allegedly buried for months. Anne had resisted it until she couldn't. Pressure from behind closed doors had been mounting, not only from courtiers loyal to Charles, but from power brokers who viewed Zara as an unpredictable figurehead without a title. Despite her distance from formal duties, her public appeal had become too loud to ignore and too dangerous to leave unaddressed. Behind Anne's composed delivery was a mother torn by obligation and love, handing down a sentence she didn't author but had been forced to deliver. The weight of the words wasn't just in their content, but in their timing. For over a year, Zara's public profile had been on a steady rise, attending international events, making diplomatic appearances through her equestrian influence, and quietly becoming a bridge between the royals and modern Britain. There were plans in motion, silent nods of approval from external advisors, and even speculation that she could take on informal roles championing youth and sports across the Commonwealth. And yet, this announcement halted all of it, cold, clean, calculated. The question on everyone's mind was simple: why now? Insiders say the announcement was delayed multiple times. Royal aides were instructed to draft and redraft the language, trying to soften the blow while maintaining the firm boundary the Crown wanted to re-establish. It was a careful dance, one Anne had resisted, knowing the personal cost. But in the end, silence was no longer an option. Sources suggest a heated exchange days before the announcement, involving senior palace officials and even Camilla's closest advisors, where the urgency of preserving the structure was emphasized. Zara's increasing independence had become, in some eyes, a liability. But what's even more disturbing is the undertone of inevitability, that no matter how beloved Zara had become, no matter how many doors she opened, there was always a ceiling she was never meant to breach. Her lack of title, once seen as freedom, had become a convenient excuse to deny her influence. And in choosing to speak now, Anne may have been making a devastating trade Zara's future in exchange for preserving fragile unity behind the scenes. A daughter's role sacrificed for the monarchy's balance, but behind Anne's poised exterior lies a storm of decisions, regrets, and loyalty tests. What really pushed her to act now? For months, something wasn't right. Princess Anne had grown quieter in council meetings, her famously stoic demeanor hardening. Meanwhile, Zara's growing popularity had started rubbing certain royal factions the wrong way. Was this a mother-daughter divide, or something far darker at play? Whispers began to circulate around Clarence's house, subtle at first, almost imperceptible. But in royal circles, silence is never empty. It's tactical. Senior courtiers noticed the shift in Anne's tone during internal discussions, especially when Zara's name surfaced. The same daughter she once protected so fiercely now drew brief nods, clipped replies, and unsettling quiet. It wasn't detachment, it was hesitation, the kind that hinted at decisions being made far from public view. A quiet storm had begun to swirl behind palace gates, one that pitted legacy against evolution, obedience against instinct. And in the eye of it stood Princess Anne, trapped between her bloodline and her duty. The growing concern wasn't about Zara's ability, it was about her unpredictability. She didn't belong to any rigid royal mold. Without a title to constrain her, she had become a wild card. She moved with ease between horse arenas and international forums, captivating audiences and sidestepping royal protocol. Her appeal was raw, real, and refreshingly unfiltered. And that, to those steeped in royal tradition, was unsettling. Internal debates escalated. Some feared she was blurring the lines between personal initiative and crown representation. Others believed she was the future face the monarchy needed to survive modern scrutiny. But those debates were not made in the open. Instead, they echoed in shadowy corners of council rooms, behind ornate doors and veiled glances. Behind the scenes, senior aides exchanged anxious texts. One chilling exchange reportedly referred to Zara as a spark too close to dry hay. That single line spoke volumes. Her independence, once admired, had become suspect. The same fire that made her magnetic now posed a risk. She wasn't part of the system, but she was becoming bigger than it. Worse still, her growing diploma. TIC influence in the Commonwealth, especially among youth sports organizations, gave her an informal power the firm could neither control nor predict. To the establishment, Zara was no longer simply a royal by blood, she was beginning to act like one by presence. For Anne, the emotional toll was immense. No one in the family understood better the sacrifice of individuality for institutional order. She had lived it. She had endured it. And now she was watching her daughter threaten to unravel the tightrope walk that held the monarchy together. Some insiders say Anne spent sleepless nights torn between shielding her daughter from the crown's cold machinery and preserving the hierarchy that had defined her life. In public, Anne remained composed, but behind the scenes, sources describe moments of quiet breakdowns and long, isolated walks and internal war with no easy outcome. Adding to the complexity was the contrasting presence of Catherine, Princess of Wales. With every passing month, Catherine's influence grew polished, titled, institutionally accepted. She represented the ideal royal archetype, gracefully filling the void left by public disillusionment with others. In subtle ways, comparisons began surfacing. While Zara represented freedom, Catherine embodied control, and when choices had to be made between unpredictability and poise, the palace made its preference painfully clear. But the conflict didn't begin in a boardroom. It began in a secret meeting years ago where Zara's future was quietly redrawn. What if Zara's fate was sealed not yesterday but decades ago? A secret agreement, long buried beneath layers of royal discretion, may hold the key to why Princess Anne finally broke her silence. And when you learn who else was present, everything changes. In the labyrinthine corridors of royal history, some decisions are made not in the light of public scrutiny, but in the shrouded confines of legacy, preservation, and fear. Newly surfaced documents from 1999, stamped with insignia few have access to, reveal the existence of what was ominously referred to as a secondary line duty clause, a provision designed to silently guide the futures of those born just outside the main line of succession. Zara was never meant to take center stage, not because she lacked ability, but because those at the helm feared what her independence could unleash. These papers weren't authored on a whim, they were shaped by the heavy hands of tradition, strategy, and quiet desperation to control the uncontrollable. One document stood out, a letter written in Prince Philip's unmistakable hand, cold yet oddly compassionate, read, "Zara must never carry the burden that broke Margaret." It was a reference that chilled those who understood its meaning. Princess Margaret, once the star burning too brightly beside a sovereign sister, had been consumed by the very system that now seemed determined to prevent a repeat with Zara. Philip's words were clear: Zara was to be protected. Not through empowerment, but through limitation. Her light, though brilliant, was to remain in the periphery, not extinguished but deliberately obscured. Even the late Queen had weighed in. Confidential briefings show she was present during discussions about Zara's future, offering a measured yet cautious voice. She understood the pressures, the temptations of public life, and the fragility of the crown's image. Anne's decision to forego royal titles for her children, long perceived as an act of maternal rebellion, now appears to have been a calculated piece of a far larger design. It wasn't rejection, it was insulation. The palace, fearing another Margaret moment, ensured that Zara's potential path to prominence would remain unofficial, symbolic, and easily severable. And yet, it wasn't always meant to be this way. In the early 2000s, there had been talks, concrete ones, about offering Zara a role as an unofficial ambassador to youth organisations across the Commonwealth. Her natural charm, her athletic accolades, and her unfiltered voice were seen as assets. But just as quickly as the offer surfaced, it vanished. No explanation was given. Some say it was rescinded after internal resistance. Others believe a warning from within the Royal Strategic Council reminded senior members of the clause Zara could never be allowed to appear as an heir in all but name. The memory of Margaret's defiance still lingered, casting long shadows over every progressive idea that dared to emerge. This wasn't merely history repeating it, was history policing itself. The very institution that feared losing control had ensured that even before Zara could step forward, the ground beneath her feet had already been pulled back. Every move she made, every success she claimed, was monitored against a quiet, invisible checklist. Not too bold, not too loud, not too visible. And when she crossed lines no one warned her existed, the consequences were swift, and now devastatingly public. Yet if this pact was meant to protect Zara, why does it now feel like a weapon used against her? She was never meant to be the star, but Zara's effortless charisma, relatability, and lack of formality became her greatest weapon. As palace approval ratings faltered, Zara's every appearance reminded the public of what royalty could be, and that made her dangerous. It wasn't planned, and it certainly wasn't approved. But Zara's rise wasn't orchestrated, it was organic, and that made it more threatening. While other royals stood stiffly behind gilded podiums, Zara was seen laughing with fans, posting behind-the-scenes glimpses of her life through equestrian circuits, and giving interviews that felt less like rehearsed speeches and more like candid conversations. It was this rare authenticity that resonated with a fatigued public, tired of the monotony and pageantry. As trust in royal institutions declined, Zara's every public appearance seemed to do what official engagements couldn't build real action. She wasn't bound by ceremonial scripts, yet she embodied a kind of royalty the people actually wanted, and that was a problem. Behind closed doors, her rising influence didn't go unnoticed. There were murmurs, then meetings, then memos. Senior aides began comparing social engagement metrics and public sentiment polls. One chilling summary, reportedly passed between two senior strategists, stated, "Zara doesn't need the crown, but the people love her." That single line captured the core of the crisis. She had become what the institution couldn't control, a symbol of relevance that wasn't rooted in bloodline priority or royal tradition, but something far more volatile, public affection. The crown's grip on perception was slipping, and Zara's freedom highlighted just how rigid the rest of them looked in contrast. Jealousy, however unspoken, began to take root among the titled. Those groomed for years to stand in the spotlight found themselves outshone by a woman with no official rank. The contrast was most glaring when compared to the Cambridges. While Catherine and William executed their duties with polished precision, Zara appeared effortlessly relatable. Where one followed script, the other followed instinct. That contrast wasn't accidental, it became a quiet divide. Some within the firm began referring to it as the Cambridge-Tindall dichotomy, a subtle rivalry the public was never meant to see. Catherine was the monarchy's future on paper. Zara was what the future act. Yulee looked like in the eyes of the public. Inside strategy rooms, royal brand managers scrambled. How do you rein in a woman who owes you nothing? That was the question that led to one of the more controversial proposals floated to the Royal Council redefining Zara's scope. It wasn't censorship. It was control by omission. Invitations began to taper off. Media exposure was quietly redirected. Coverage of her achievements in international sporting diplomacy mysteriously failed to make official royal newsletters. Even her social presence, once lightly embraced, was now being monitored under the guise of protecting institutional consistency. But those close to Zara say she felt it. She felt the cold shoulder, the shifting tone, the abrupt silences in rooms she once walked into freely. The irony was cruel. The same qualities that had once made Zara a royal asset were now deemed liabilities. And while Anne had always stood firm in her daughter's defense, even that wall was beginning to crack. Sources recall a conversation between Anne and a senior royal aide where, for the first time, Anne did not object when Zara's media reach was labelled a threat. The words stung. They marked a shift. The silence that followed was louder than any argument. But if Zara was the problem, then why did Princess Anne fight so hard until she didn't? There was a time Princess Anne fought like a lion for Zara's place. But in the sealed chambers of the Royal Strategic Council, where influence is currency and silence is survival, even Anne's voice began to tremble. The council wanted control, and Zara had to be neutralized. Deep within the palace's most private advisory room, decisions are made that never reach the public. These aren't ceremonial debates or discussions of ribbon cuttings. They're power plays cloaked in tradition, wielded by those who understand the stakes of every name, every appearance, every deviation from the script. And recently the documents leaked from that very room sent chills through royal analysts. Rebalancing of non-operational royals, the phrase read sterile, vague, but chilling in implication. Zara wasn't named directly, but no one needed her to be. The meaning was clear: those outside the core must be silenced, softened, or swept away. Princess Anne resisted, fiercely at first. She refused to sign the council's updated visibility protocols. She challenged the language, the intent, the need for such changes. For years she had kept her daughter safe from the crown's harshest expectations. But this was different. This was erasure. And yet, something changed. Just weeks before Anne's devastating public statement, sources say her resistance collapsed. Those closest to her recall an emotional outburst behind closed doors. "They've boxed me in," she whispered, voice cracked, pride shattered. It wasn't just defeat, it was resignation. The walls had closed in too tightly, the cost of defiance too steep. Whispers of Camilla's growing influence add fuel to the fire. Palace insiders began to note a shift in power dynamics. Subtle but unmistakable. Camilla, long operating from the sidelines, was reportedly involved in shaping visibility agendas, championing a cleaner hierarchy, one less muddied by unpredictable figures like Zara. The Queen Consort Circle, known for precision and strategic caution, saw Zara's rogue popularity as a wild variable. And Anne, once untouchable in her role as the monarchy's workhorse, was now being outmaneuvered in a game she no longer controlled. Meanwhile, Prince William's silence loomed large. His position, once thought to be an ally to Zara's modern edge, grew increasingly neutral. During strategy sessions, he reportedly offered no objection to Zara's quiet exclusion from key events. No direct veto, no firm defense, just silence, and silence, in the language of power, can often mean consent. As Zara vanished from palace schedules, absent from diplomatic dinners, missing from joint appearances, no explanations followed, just the eerie quiet of a door closing without a sound. And so, the shift was complete. Anne, the most unshakable of them all, was forced to yield, not because she believed her daughter didn't belong, but because she feared the institution would crush Zara if she didn't act first. A tactical surrender to protect her from something far worse. But what no one inside that council chamber seemed to realize was that Zara Tindall was already steps ahead. Yet, even as Anne surrendered her daughter's role, Zara had already begun preparing her next move quietly, defiantly. While the monarchy debated Zara's worth, she was crafting her own empire. In hushed conversations with Commonwealth allies, in whispered plans with insiders, Zara was building something the crown could never control: her legacy. Far from the watchful eyes of palace aides and shadowy council whispers, Zara was laying bricks in silence, deliberately, defiantly. She knew the gates were closing, but instead of begging for entry, she turned toward the world beyond the crown. Trusted sources from within diplomatic circles in Canberra and Wellington revealed quiet meetings with prominent female leaders, discussions not about royal patronage, but about partnership. Zara wasn't seeking approval, she was building alliances. Her vision? An independent foundation designed to bridge youth, sports and diplomacy across the Commonwealth, unshackled from royal doctrine, but born from royal blood. It was a move so audacious, so outside the playbook, that insiders first believed it to be rumor. But the rumors were true and spreading. This wasn't rebellion for the sake of spectacle. It was restoration. For the first time, Zara was reclaiming what had always been hers, not through inheritance but intention. At a private fundraiser, when pressed about her absence from recent royal events, she delivered a line that would later be quoted across dinner tables and debate panels alike. "I may not be royal, but I am born of royalty." It wasn't bitterness, it was clarity. She no longer needed palace approval to validate her role. She was choosing her own lane, and with every step, she gained something the crown feared most: independence with influence. Yet beneath the headlines and speculation, there was another story quietly unfolding. Anne. Though publicly distant, Anne's financial footprint began surfacing behind Zara's new initiatives. Through discreet donations, untraceable at first glance but undeniable upon deeper inspection, Anne was funding the very path she had been forced to deny. It was her final silent act of defiance. She could not speak for Zara, but she could support her. And she did. The mother who had once shielded her from the weight of a title was now arming her to build a future the monarchy had refused her. Zara, too, was making statements in her own quiet way. She began to reject symbolic royal offerings, opting out of ceremonial acknowledgements, declining proposed honorary roles. But she accepted invitations from international youth forums, signed on to collaborate with global athletic ambassadors, and began mentoring emerging voices across the Commonwealth. Every rejection of royal pomp was matched by an embrace of real, active leadership. It was a pattern too intentional to ignore. And then came a surprise: Princess Eugenie. Once walking a parallel path, Eugenie had begun quietly aligning with Zara, lending her voice, her contacts, and her platform. Their shared frustrations with institutional limitations turned into whispered strategy sessions. It wasn't a rebellion, it was a reimagining, a silent alliance, bound not by crowns or coronets, but by conviction. But no plan survives royal interference, and a final confrontation loomed, both inevitable and heartbreaking. One mother, one daughter, and a conversation that would define everything. Sources confirm Princess Anne summoned Zara privately just hours before the public announcement. What was said in that room remains officially unconfirmed, but insiders reveal words that cut deeper than any public decree. The meeting was unscheduled, unrecorded, and entirely unceremonious. No aides, no staff, no notes, just Anne and Zara, behind closed doors, for what many now call the most emotionally charged exchange in recent royal memory. After weeks of tension, whispered betrayals, and unanswered messages, Zara entered the room demanding clarity. What she got instead was a revelation. According to someone close to the situation, Zara's voice cracked first. "Why didn't you fight harder?" The question wasn't angry, it was broken. And Anne, normally composed to the point of being icy, reportedly responded without hesitation, "Because they would have destroyed you." The words silenced the room. Zara realized in that moment that this wasn't abandonment. It was surrender for the sake of survival. And the cost of defiance had already been weighed, measured, and deemed too high. What followed was more than a confession, it was an unveiling. Anne revealed that a line had been drawn by Charles's senior circle. Either Zara stepped back permanently, or consequences would ripple far beyond her. Titles would be stripped, patronages retracted, trusted allies cut off from their roles. The threat wasn't directed at Zara, it was aimed at the next generation. Eugenie, Beatrice, even Anne herself. A calculated warning dressed as negotiation. The message was clear: remove the peace before it destabilizes the board. And Anne, once fearless, was finally cornered. For Zara, it was the cruelest irony: born royal, bound by its rules, yet denied any real power within it. She had played by the rules for so long, attended events, stayed gracious, followed the script when necessary. And still, she had become the problem. Her independence, her popularity, her refusal to be managed, had led her here facing a quiet exile, disguised as strategic necessity. There were no raised voices in that room, but the silence between them was louder than thunder. And when Anne reached out just once, just instinctively Zara stepped back. No embrace, no closure, just distance. Zara left the room wordless, her eyes dry not because she wasn't in pain, but because the time for tears had already passed. She knew what was coming next. She knew the statement had already been drafted. She didn't ask for a delay. She didn't ask for reconsideration. She simply walked out stronger, colder, and forever changed. Meanwhile, Anne remained alone, standing at the window of her Balmoral suite, motionless for what seemed like hours. Later that evening, she was seen walking alone through the estate garden trails, an image that would become symbolic in retrospect. The lone royal walking the path between duty and devastation, between motherhood and monarchy. And then came the announcement, cold, controlled, and catastrophic, leaving the public reeling, and the crown forever altered. The world heard Anne's words. But what followed was louder. Protests outside Buckingham, hashtags calling for Zara's reinstatement, and a royal family once obsessed with unity now cracking under the weight of its own choices. This wasn't just about Zara, it was about the future of the monarchy itself. In the hours after the announcement, social media ignited like dry grass catching fire. Global news outlets dropped their scheduled programming. Zara's name wasn't trending, it was dominating. From Sydney to Toronto, from Edinburgh to Cape Town, the reaction was unanimous: shock, heartbreak, and rage. The public had seen Zara as one of them, born into royalty, yes, but grounded, relatable, and free from the scripted elitism that had plagued the crown's reputation. And now, that one royal they believed in had been cast aside without explanation, stripped of her voice in a decision made behind tightly shut palace doors. Thousands gathered outside royal residences, holding banners that didn't just support Zara, they demanded answers. Where's the transparency? They shouted. Where's the justice? Royal commentators scrambled to catch up. One historian with decades of royal analysis behind him summed it up best. Zara was the bridge they burned. She was the only one walking between tradition and tomorrow. That quote was everywhere within 24 hours. She wasn't just symbolic, she was essential. A monarchy on the brink of modern collapse had severed one of its strongest lifelines. And it wasn't going unnoticed. Editorials began to question if the crown had miscalculated not just a move, but a generation's faith. Inside the palace, silence ruled, and that silence spoke volumes. Catherine, always poised and polished, made no comment, but her silence was picked apart by experts. Some said it was loyalty to Anne. Others suggested it was quiet protest. One lip reader even claimed she whispered to an aide during a charity event, "This will haunt us." No confirmation, no denial, just more silence, and that silence was a storm of its own. Meanwhile, William's actions raised more questions than answers. At a veterans' commemoration event, he tapped the side of his jacket in what looked like a discreet nod to Zara's equestrian charity, a move so subtle it sent royal watchers into overdrive. Was it solidarity? Was it a farewell? And then came the speculation no one had dared voice aloud. That Zara, now unbound by official ties, could become something the monarchy had long feared, an icon of the people, outside the system, but louder than any sov. Erin. Thought leaders began imagining a post-monarchy Britain. One not marked by rebellion, but by reinvention. And in that vision, Zara stood at the center not as a queen, but as a voice the institution could no longer silence. But as the public surged forward in defense, the toll behind the gates deepened. Princess Anne's once unshakable approval ratings fell for the first time in decades. Her image, long forged in iron and loyalty, was now shadowed by doubt. Was she a mother forced to choose, or a royal who failed her daughter? The line blurred, and her legacy, carefully built over years of unyielding service, now trembled under the weight of a single moment. But even as the monarchy trembles, Zara isn't done. Her final move is one no one saw coming. They tried to silence her. They tried to sideline her. But Zara Tindall, unburdened by titles yet fortified by truth, is now forging a path that could redefine royal legacy. She may not sit on a throne, but she's become the symbol of something even more powerful: freedom. What began as heartbreak has transformed into something far more powerful: resurgence. Days after the palace announcement, Zara emerged not as a victim, but as a visionary. Without a title to defend, she built something impossible to control: a movement. Her newly launched initiative, centered on youth empowerment and international sports diplomacy, broke donation records within 48 hours. Public figures, celebrities, even former Commonwealth leaders rallied behind her. This wasn't just a comeback, it was a reckoning. A declaration that relevance does not require royal permission. That respect is earned not by bloodline, but by purpose. Behind the scenes, another force stirred. A sizable anonymous donation, substantial enough to fund the entire first phase of Zara's global initiative, was quietly traced back to a private trust historically linked to Anne's personal estate. The palace offered no comment, but insiders say this was Anne's final rebellion. If she couldn't protect Zara within the monarchy, she would empower her beyond it. And in doing so, Anne reminded the world that her loyalty wasn't to the system, it was to her daughter. Zara's first stop was Auckland, then Cape Town, then Toronto. At each stop, the message was the same: reinvention, resilience, representation. The public turned out in droves, not for a royal engagement, but for a woman who had become more than a royal. Zara wasn't waving from balconies, she was shaking hands, sharing stories, lifting voices. And when she took the stage in Melbourne for her first public address since the announcement, her speech ignited a wildfire of support. "They chose silence," she said. "I chose to speak." Within hours, clips of her speech went viral. Headlines didn't just cover her, they celebrated her. "Zara leads, monarchy follows," one read. Another, "The Crown's quietest threat just found her voice." Back in London, the family's silence grew deafening. No public congratulations, no official statement, but every absence spoke volumes. The palace's refusal to acknowledge her rise only strengthened her legitimacy. Commentators began questioning the monarchy's judgment, asking whether their cold dismissal would come back to haunt them. Behind the gates, discussions reportedly turned tense. Could the Crown afford to keep ignoring someone the world refused to forget? Was it time to consider recognizing Zara, not as a title holder, but as a representative of a new generation, one the monarchy could never fully command? And as the dust settles, one truth remains: royal titles fade, but legacy never dies. And Zara Tindall's legacy is just beginning. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.